I am going to say a thing out loud that I have carried for years and never once told a living soul. I am 78 years old, and I have decided that if a man will not say the true thing at 78, he never will. For the better part of 4 years after I lost my wife, I was a corpse that somehow kept getting up and pulling on its pants. I was not sick. Every doctor I sat in front of poked at me and pronounced me healthy as a horse. Strong heart, good numbers. And still, one morning after the next, I would open my eyes in that too big house in Youngstown, Ohio, and feel nothing at all, not even grief, just a flat gray blank, as though a hand had reached into my chest, clicked something to the off position, and wandered off without leaving a note. And here is what gets me even now, sitting where I sit, with the evening air sliding down off the mountain and a cold glass of lime soda leaving a ring on the table at my elbow. What finally switched the lights back on in me was not a pill. It was not a counselor, and bless them, I saw two. It was not a cruise, and I took 4 of those. It was an old walled city in the far north of Thailand that most folks back home cannot find on a map and can hardly pronounce. And I very nearly never boarded that plane. I very nearly stayed put in that gray house and let the whole thing go dark for keeps. So let me back up, because if you clicked on this, my guess is you are sitting somewhere not too far from where I was. Maybe your own house has gone quiet. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Larry. For 38 years, I ran setup on the line at a plant outside Youngstown that stamped brake parts for trucks. It was no glamorous way to spend a life, but it was honest and I was good at it. I married a girl named Sharon at 22. We had 2 of our own, a daughter and then a son, and we scraped and clawed until that little house was ours free and clear. Every summer, we drove the kids to a lake in Kentucky in a wagon that smelled of sunscreen and salami. Sharon did the talking, I did the listening, and I did it for 41 years. She ran the conversation and I ran the quiet, and somehow that left the 2 of us content. Then one spring she came back from a checkup with a look on her face, and by the time the leaves turned, she was gone. It was in the pancreas. They warn you it moves fast, and they do not exaggerate. One week she is grumbling that the clinic has lousy parking, and a couple months on, I am standing in a carpeted room, picking between 2 caskets and trying to remember how a body is supposed to breathe. That first year, the neighbors and the casseroles carry you. People bring food. The church women keep calling. My daughter Colleen flew in from Columbus and stayed a month and reorganized every cabinet I own, which was her way of loving a father she could not actually mend. My boy Greg phoned every Sunday evening on the dot. Every one of them was good to me, and not a bit of it reached the cold stone wedge square in the center of my chest. By that second year, the casseroles tapered off, which is only natural, and the house went dead silent. I would stand there in the cereal aisle down at the Giant Eagle a solid 15 minutes because I honestly could not summon one reason to choose a box. I quit cooking. I quit shaving most days. I would run the television till 2 in the morning and sleep till near noon. Colleen was the one who put a name to it. She came at Thanksgiving, looked at me across the bird, and said, "Dad, this isn't sad anymore. You've left. You checked out and forgot to tell anybody." And I remember thinking, well, she always was the sharp, but I did not have the fuel to argue or to agree. I passed the potatoes. So I did the whole list of things a man is meant to do because somebody out there is already deciding I just did not try. I tried. I sat with a grief counselor, a kind young woman who gave me real homework, thankfulness lists, and slow breathing drills, and I did every bit of it like a straight A student and felt not one thing. I was on the pills the better part of a year, and they took the very worst edge off the bottom, but sanded everything else flat along with it. So instead of feeling nothing sharply, I felt it dull and padded. That was the trade. Then a fellow from church, a retired druggist named Walt, who had put his own wife in the ground a couple years ahead of me and seemed to be managing just fine, told me what I needed was to get out and see some of the world. You have got the money, Larry, he said. The pension, the paid off house, all the time in creation. Go, it will wake you up. So I set out to purchase a feeling, and I tried near everywhere. Cruises first, a Caribbean run, then Alaska, then the Mediterranean, and when none threw a spark, a 2-week Atlantic crossing out of sheer spite. And a cruise ship, I am near an expert now, amounts to a shopping mall that floats, stuffed with nice people my age, all pretending they are not a touch lonesome too. The food is something, and each night you share a table with strangers and run the identical 4 questions. Where are you from? How many grandkids? First cruise. Some weather. Then you retreat to a cabin the size of a broom closet and lie there feeling, you already guessed it, nothing. Then I gave Florida a whirl, because every Ohioan eventually gives Florida a whirl. I rented a place in Naples for a full winter. Gorgeous and eye-watering expensive, and packed wall to wall with folks exactly like me, retired and comfortable and quietly adrift. After about 6 weeks, it dawned on me that all I had accomplished was to drag my empty house 1,500 miles south and park it beside a beach. Same hollow feeling. Better weather. I drove north in March. After that came Portugal because Colleen read an article about all the clever retirees moving there. Lisbon was a picture, all tiles and trolley cars and custard tarts. And the trouble with it, for a man like me, was that it dazzled the way a fridge postcard dazzles. And I was a visitor passing through, and every soul there could tell, and by the third week you are only a lonesome old American eating supper alone at 8, while whole Portuguese families laugh around you, everyone with somewhere to be and someone to be there with. Then Mexico, Lake Chapala, where they say half the retired school teachers in America have washed up, and I held out about a month before I saw I had done it again. Same man, fresh patio, because here is what nobody hands you straight. Once you have tried every place that makes sense, and not one of them takes, you begin to suspect the trouble is not the address at all. Maybe the trouble is you. Maybe a man reaches a certain age, loses the one soul who was the whole point of him, and the feeling part of him shuts its doors for good. I flew home from Mexico and told Colleen on the phone, honey, I think this is just the shape of things now. I have used up my turns at bat. I am 68, and the part of me that feels is finished, and that is all right. I had a good long run, and my daughter, who almost never cries, broke down weeping right there on the line, and I felt bad about it, but I did not feel it. Do you follow me? I merely observed that she was crying, the way you would observe that it had started to rain. So how does a man in that shape wind up where I am now, more awake in his own hide than he has been in 20 years? I will tell you, and it starts with about the last person you would pick. There was a man named Not Tapong who worked at the care home outside Youngstown where my older brother Stan had gone to live. Everyone there called him Nat, a Thai fellow, maybe 50, one of the aides on the floor. He carried a thing I can only call lightness, and not the shallow sort. That man was on his feet 12 hours a stretch cleaning up after people in the hardest chapter of their lives, and he hummed while he did it. He would step into Stan's room, drop some small joke, clap you on the shoulder, and somehow the entire room would let go of a breath it had been holding. I would go sit with Stan and wind up in the hall talking to Nat half an hour, because he was the one person I had met in 2 years who looked at me and saw a man and not a problem to be managed. There is one afternoon I keep coming back to. Stan was having a bad day. His mind roams now, my brother. He had gotten agitated and scared, and I stood there useless as a spare part, the way you do when someone you love is slipping and there is nothing in your two hands to catch. And Nat came in and did not hurry. He hauled a chair over and got my brother going about the brake plant, the old presses, the graveyard shift back in 1971. Inside 5 minutes, Stan was settled and telling stories, lit up brighter than I had seen him in months. Afterward, I asked how on God's green earth he knew to do that. He only shrugged and told me, "You have got to find the one door in a person that is still standing open. Find the door still standing open in a person." I did not know it yet, out there in that corridor. But he was about to go hunting for the door still open in me. One day I asked him, half joking, Nat, "What is your secret? How are you not ground down to a nub? How do you stay so, I don't know, light?" And he gave that laugh and told me, Long Larry, he always called me Long Larry, which is Uncle Larry over here, Long Larry, where I grew up, a person does not sit alone. Nobody sits alone. That is the whole of it. You are never the last one left in the room. And then a call button went off, and he was away down the hall. I made little of it at the moment. But that one sentence buried itself in me like a splinter under a thumbnail. You are never the last one left in the room. Because was that not my whole illness right there? I was always the last one left in the room. Even aboard a ship with 3,000 other people, I had become a man who was thoroughly the last one left in whatever room he entered. Some weeks later, Nat mentioned he was heading home to see his people for a month. I asked him where home was. Chiang Mai, he said, a city up in the mountains, the old capital of the North, the gentlest place on earth, where a man is never rushed and never on his own. And I do not know what took hold of me, maybe the splinter. But I heard my own voice say, Nat, would it be a crazy thing if I came along? Not to be a bother, only to, I don't know, set eyes on it. And he did not laugh at me. That is the whole point. A busier man, a younger one, would have laughed off the lonesome old widower inviting himself along on a family trip. Nat only studied me a second. Then he split into an enormous grin and said, Loong Larry, my mother will have adopted you before the first sundown. You are coming. Colleen was certain I had lost my marbles. Greg right alongside her. You don't know this man, Dad, they said. You met him by a vending machine. You are going to fly to the far side of the planet, 17 hours in the air, to a country you cannot even point to, trailing after an orderly, and you will wind up all alone over there. You are going to die alone in some place we can't even pronounce. And I said, and I remember it clear as a bell because it was the first almost living thing out of my mouth in years, I said, Colleen, I have tried every place that made good sense. And every one left me cold. Let me go try one that makes no sense at all. I bought the ticket before the frightened part of me could talk the rest of me out of it. Youngstown to Chicago, Chicago to Tokyo, Tokyo to Bangkok, and then a little hopper on north to a city I could not pronounce, to be near a man I knew from a fistful of hallway chats. 68 years old, and I want to be straight about what I felt on that plane. It was not hope, not oh, this is the answer. It was closer to a man who has walked a long haul trying every door, and there is one left down at the very end, and he does not truly believe it will give either, but he has come this far, so he may as well reach out and rattle the knob. That flight was long, Lord, it was long. I am a big fellow, and those seats are not made with big fellows in mind. By Tokyo, my spine had filed a formal grievance. But somewhere out over the Pacific in the black, everyone around me asleep. One of those seat back maps crawling our little plane across all that empty blue, a thought arrived that had not come in years. I thought, not one soul where I am going has ever seen the dead version of me. They never knew Larry was Sharon. They were not at the funeral. To every one of them, I will just be some new old fellow who turned up. And for reasons I could not name, that felt less like loneliness than like a clean sheet of paper. We sat down in Bangkok into a heat that hit like a wet blanket the instant the door cracked. And the din of that airport, my word, the color and the crush of it. My very first thought was, Larry, you have made a large and costly mistake. I stood in that immigration queue, sweating clean through my shirt. But then we caught the little northern flight up to Chiang Mai, dropping down over these green folded mountains with the mist still pooled in the valleys and gold temple roofs winking up at us, and I felt the first flicker, only a flicker, like a pilot light years cold catching for a single heartbeat. Then we touched down, and Nat's entire family was standing there in that little terminal, a dozen of them or so, I learned later, holding up a hand-painted sign. And naturally I took it for him. But the sign, in big crooked letters, read, Welcome, Loong Larry, for me. A man not one of them had ever laid eyes on. And his mother, a tiny woman named May Nu An, no taller than the middle of my chest, marched right up to a total stranger, folded both my rough old hands into both of hers, looked all the way up at me, and said in slow, careful English, You are home now. And me, old Larry Sikorsky of Youngstown, Ohio, brake line man and widower. The fellow who could not squeeze out one tear at his own wife's funeral, being too shut down to find one. I stood there in that terminal heat and broke down and wept like a small boy in front of every last one of them, and nobody stepped back. They only closed in around me, the whole dozen, these people who were strangers to me, and kept me on my feet. That was the moment the lights first flickered on, and I had no earthly notion, standing there, that the true story had not even begun. Now, I had a hotel booked for those first few nights, a tidy little spot tucked just inside the old wall, right on the moat. And I want to draw you a picture of that moat because it became the heart of my new life. The old town of Chiang Mai is a perfect square, ringed by a broad water moat and the crumbling brick of a wall that has stood 700 years. And come evening, the entire city empties into the streets to stroll. University students, whole families, grandfathers bent over a chessboard on the sidewalk, vendors grilling little bananas and skewers of pork, couples, kids tearing about with balloons, every single evening, No holiday, just a Tuesday. Just people choosing to be near one another, because that is simply what a person does here. And there, my second evening, jet lagged and half in a fog, I sat on a bench by the old gate maybe 4 minutes before a shy little pack of students asked whether they might practice their English on me. 10 minutes on, I had 8 teenagers around me asking about America and snow and whether I had ever met anybody famous. I told them I once spotted the Ohio governor himself at a Bob Evans. They were tickled to pieces. Nat came round next morning and, in so many words, told me I would not be staying in any hotel. "Lung Larry," he said, "my mother has already made up the bed. Stay here and she will take it for an insult, and trust me, you do not want that woman insulted." So I moved into the family house, a few lanes back from the moat, a concrete place painted a faded green with a rooster situation out back that I will get to, because that bird nearly finished me. Now let me talk money a minute, because I know somebody watching is running the arithmetic the way I did. In Naples, I had been handing over close to $4,000 a month for that condo and feeling wretched. Here is what a life runs me in Chiang Mai, and I am not trimming the numbers. I eventually took my own place, a two-bedroom with a little balcony, 10 minutes on foot from the moat, for the equal of about $350 a month. A woman named Pen C comes by twice a week to clean and handle my wash, and she has become something like a niece to me. And that runs about $60 a month, and I near had to wrestle her into a raise. A full plate at a local shop, rice and grilled fish and greens and a cold drink sets you back $2 or $3. I went for a full checkup with a good doctor, Western trained, sharp as a tack, and the whole visit came to around $20. No appointment, no insurance card. I walked right in. I live, and I do mean live well, dine out most evenings, take my little trips, see a doctor whenever the notion strikes, on a slice of my pension. The rest I wire home to my grandson's college funds. After 4 years of bleeding money trying to buy a pulse in Florida and Portugal and Mexico, the cheapest place I ever set foot was the only one that worked. But money was never the story, because plenty of folks land somewhere like this chasing the cheap living and stroll right past the real treasure, which costs nothing. Let me tell you about the mornings here. Back home in Ohio, I used to sleep till 11 with the blinds drawn. Here I am up at 5:30 with no alarm, and I cannot fully account for it, except the day sort of tugs your sleeve to come out and meet it. There is a little shop house round the corner, a family place run by a woman everyone calls Pa Dong. By 6, I am parked on a plastic stool out front with a cup of Thai coffee, strong enough to lift the finish off a table, and a hot stick of fried dough they call Pa Tong Ko. And inside a week of my moving in, Pa Dong quit letting me order at all. She just carries out whatever she has decided I am having. The first time she did it, I about teared up on the spot. Do you have any idea how long it had been since one person on this earth decided what I ought to have? Since Sharon. It had been since Sharon. Now the food. I have to get into the food with you. A meat and potatoes man walked off that airplane, and somewhere along the line I turned into a fellow who will argue with you about chili paste. There's a northern dish called nam prick num, a soft green chili dip you scoop with sticky rice and cracklings of pork, and the first time Nat's brother slid a bowl at me, I pulled a face like he had handed me a live toad. Now I dream about the stuff. There is cow soy, a curried noodle soup with crispy noodles heaped on top, and I do not know how I got 70-odd years down the road without it. There is the grilled pork and sticky rice off the carts at the Sunday market, and eating it is very near a religious experience. And here is a funny one on me. Early on, I was trying so hard to be polite. I had picked up that folks here greet you with Jin Kao Ru Yang, which I was told means more or less, have you eaten rice yet? And I had it in my skull that this was a real, honest invitation, the way it might be at home. So I am at a food stall, and the woman running it smiles and says Jin Kao Ru Yang, and I, wanting so badly to embrace the local ways, drag up a stool and dig straight into her family's lunch. And the whole family froze for a beat and then came completely apart laughing, because it turns out Jin Kao Ru Yang is mostly just a friendly hello, nearer to how are you keeping and no kind of summons to eat their supper. But, and here is the very thing about these folks, they did not run me off. They fed me. They pulled up a proper chair and fed the crazy American and laughed with me, not at me, and folded me into the joke rather than making me the butt of it. And that stall lady, Pa Wan is her name. To this day, she calls me the fellow who came for lunch. And she means it kindly. Oh, and I promised I would tell you about that rooster. When I first came to live in that family house, there was this rooster out back. And I promise you, not one person had thought to warn me about a Thai rooster. Back home, a rooster crows at sunup, polite as you please, just like in the funny papers. This rooster had not read the funny papers. This rooster crowed at 1 in the morning, and again at 2, and again at 3:15 on the nose, like he bore some private grudge against 3:15. The first night I was sure the animal was being murdered. I went stumbling out back in my undershirt at 3 in the morning, ready to be the hero, ready to rescue this poor dying creature. And there he stood, fit as a fiddle, strutting in the dirt, tickled pink with himself. And Nat's brother Som Chai, who slept out there, lifted his head off the pillow and said, flat as a griddle, Lung Lair, he is fine. He is only talking at 3 in the morning to nobody. I declared open war on that bird, and I am not proud of a minute of it. I bribed him with fistfuls of rice. I stood in the yard and stared him down like a gunfighter. I even, and may the Lord forgive me, sat at the computer one night to look up how long a barnyard rooster is meant to live. And the family judged this the single funniest thing to happen in all of recorded history. This great big American at war with a chicken. So of course they went and named that rooster after me. He answers to Larry now. And the two of us eventually reached terms, meaning he won outright, and I taught myself to sleep through him. You learn to sleep through a great many things, it turns out, once you have finally got a reason to wake. That is the texture of it. That is what I could never find in a Naples condo or a Lisbon custard shop. And it is not the scenery, though the scenery up here will stop your heart. About an hour out of town, up in the hills, there is a sanctuary where they let the old, worn-out, working elephants live out their days in peace. And the first time I went up, at 68 years old, one of the old girls, a great gray mountain of a thing, reached her trunk over the rail, real slow, and looked me dead in the eye. Just looked at me, unbothered, patient, like an old neighbor leaning on a fence. And I walked away from that rail, laughing out loud. Nat had to ask what was so funny, and I could not explain it. There was nothing funny about it. I was simply alive, and my body had remembered how to laugh a good beat before my brain could work out why. But if I am honest with you, the real medicine was not the elephant or the scenery. It moved slower than that, and it stole up on me, and I very nearly failed to notice it happening. It was Menu On teaching me a card game on the porch of an evening, cackling and accusing me of cheating in the old northern tongue, and me not needing one word of it to know just what she was hollering. It was the neighborhood kids working out that the old American was always good for a game at the crooked little hoop in the lane. So they came up with a rule where I only had to stand beneath the hoop and nudge it in, and they whooped like I had won a title every single time. It was sitting at Pa Dong's at 6 each morning, while over a run of weeks, the other regulars, the red truck drivers and the men off the night market, and a retired school teacher named Crew Wee Chai, made a space for me. And one morning it struck me that I had a table, a standing table, with standing company, folks who would clock it if I did not appear. That was the very thing I had lost. Being missed if you fail to show. Sharon noticed. After Sharon, no one was obliged to. And here sat an entire little world that had quietly resolved to keep watch over me. A good deal of that little world got about on 2 and 3 wheels. There was one driver in particular, Ta Wan, who ran one of the red trucks they call a Song Tao, a pickup with 2 benches bolted in back that half the town rides around in. He more or less took me on as a personal project. And I will be honest, that first week I was paying the tourist rate, which is to say roughly triple what a local hands over. That is one of the honest things a man makes his peace with out here. When your hair has gone white and your face is a foreign one, certain folks spot a wallet before they spot a man. And you can let it turn you bitter, or you can memorize the going rate and laugh about it. Ta Wan is the one who set me straight on the going rate. He pulled me aside one afternoon, gravely serious, and said, "Near enough, Loon Larry. You are being robbed blind. Here is what these rides actually cost." And from that day, he watched over me like I was his own father. Ta Wan knows my whole week now. He knows I am at the reading room come Monday and the market come Thursday. And if I turn up missing, he comes rolling around to find me, same as everybody else does. I tried slipping him a little extra one time for the trouble, and he would not have it. He waved my hand off and said, "Loon Larry, you are not a customer to me anymore." I turned that one over a good deal too, right there beside the splinter. Now I want to take a little turn here a second, because I have reached a spot where I promised myself I would be honest with you, and there is something I want to set in your hand. Some while ago, before I ever shipped out here, I was so starved for one plain answer about whether a leap like this could even be pulled off. The visa side, the money, the doctors, whether an old man could manage it without the whole thing turning into a disaster. And everything I read was either a glossy brochure selling a daydream or some frightened soul on a forum swearing I would die of a snake bite inside a week. So if you are sitting right now where I sat, in a house gone quiet, wondering whether any of this is real or even in the cards for a person like you, I am going to step out of my own story a minute and point you at something. There is a book called The Right Move, and what it does is set the whole business down plain, the part nobody else will give you honest, what it truly costs month by month, the town set side by side so a man can compare, the visa, how the medical system really works, and the pitfalls waiting to snag a newcomer, and there are a few, I will not pretend otherwise. Now, I did not write it, and I have got nothing to sell you, but I do believe that if you are the kind who lies awake turning over whether a thing like this could ever be yours, then holding the real figures in your hand, in place of a daydream or a horror story, is worth a great deal. There is a link waiting in the description if you would like it. No pressure from me. That is all I will say on. All right, let me get back to that porch because something took place on that porch that turned the whole course of it, and I have not told you the hard part yet. And I do not want you walking off thinking it was all elephants and card games, that I floated into paradise and every day was perfect. It was not. There came a stretch, maybe 4 months in, when the whole business nearly came apart at the seams, and where I had to look square at the one question I had been fleeing across 4 countries. And it all began, oddly enough, with one phone call from Colleen and a fever and a decision that scared me half to death. The fever came first. I woke one morning and could not get up off the floor. I had set off from the bed and made it halfway to the bathroom before my legs simply buckled beneath me. And I lay there on the cold tile thinking, well, now, Larry, this is it. This is the spot where the lonesome old American dies alone on a bathroom floor on the far side of the earth. And they crate him up and ship him home, and every warning his kids ever gave him turns out to have been dead right. My whole body ached like I had been worked over with a bat. They call it dengue over here. You get it off the mosquitoes, and it lays grown men flat. But here is what came next, and this is the piece I truly need you to catch. I did not die on that floor, because inside maybe 20 minutes of my not turning up at Pa Dong's for my morning coffee, someone came round looking. I did not have to call a soul. I did not have one of those alert buttons strung round my neck that they were forever pushing on me back home. I simply did not show, and that was the alarm bell. Pa Dong sent her boy over to look in on the American, and the boy found me on the tile, and inside the hour I had Nat's whole family packed into my little apartment, and May New Ann planted herself in a chair at my bedside and would not rise from it for 6 days. 6 days. This 70-some-year-old woman, sleeping upright in a hard chair, spooning a rice porridge they called jock into me, mopping my brow, whispering prayers over me in the dark whenever she reckoned I had drifted off. And right in the thick of all that, Colleen called. She had heard I was sick. Nat had messaged her. The two of them had gotten friendly, and she was terrified, and she said the thing I had seen coming, the thing any child who loves you says. She said, "That is it, Dad. You are coming home. This has been a lovely adventure, but you are 68 years old and you have got a tropical fever in a country where I cannot even say the hospital's name, and I need you back here where I can care for you. I am booking the flight tonight." And I lay there weak as a wet kitten, a stranger's mother dabbing at my face, and the choice sat squarely with me. And I want to give you the true thing, because it was not really about the fever, nor even about Colleen. Here was the real thing. The thing I had been fleeing across 4 countries and never once let out of my mouth. I was scared to death that coming back to life would be a betrayal of Sharon. There it is. That is the splinter under the splinter, because so long as I stayed hollowed out, so long as I kept up the Walking Dead act, some corner of me got to call it loyalty. Do you see it? The grief was the last thing I still owned that belonged to her alone. And if I let this town pour itself into me, if I let the gentle people and the slow mornings and that patient old elephant coax me back toward happy, then where did that leave Sharon? Was she simply gone? Had 41 years closed over without a ripple the way water closes over a dropped stone. Some corner of me had ruled that staying dead on the inside was how a man stayed married, and that healing up would be its own quiet cheating. I never once said that to the counselor. I had never even let myself know it. It took me flat on my back, half out of my skull, with fever, 10,000 miles from home, with a woman I had known a matter of months, loving me like her own son, for the thing to finally rise to the top. And it was Menu An, who speaks slow and broken English, who set her palm flat to my chest one evening and spoke the words that cracked it wide open. I had been muttering about Sharon and the fever, but she caught the gist, and she told me, "Slow and careful, your wife. She does not live inside your sorrow. That is the reason you cannot find her there. She is not in that place." And she pressed her hand to my chest, dead over the cold spot, the very spot that had sat dark for years. And she told me, "She is in the living. Go and live, and there you will meet her again. Go and live, and there you will meet her." I have heard a great many words in my time, sermons and wedding toasts, and goodbyes at the foot of a hospital bed. And those are the truest anyone ever handed me. Your wife is not in the sorrow. You have been hunting for her in the wrong room. By the next morning, the fever had let go of me, and I have never once chalked that up to chance. When I had the strength to prop myself up, I got Colleen back on the line, and I was weeping, and she braced for the worst. I told her, "Sweetheart, I am staying, and you have got to let me tell you why. It is not that you kids do not matter to me. It is that I spent 4 years a dead man, and every one of you stood by and watched and could not do a thing about it. And these people, this little town, they reached in and flipped your father back on. The fellow who ran alongside your two-wheeler holding the seat, he is back. I am not about to walk out on the one place on earth that handed him to you again." The line went quiet a long spell, the costly kind, on a call from the far side of the world. And then she said, "All right, then I am flying out to see it with my own eyes. I want to see the place that pulled off what I never could." And that is exactly what she did. Then I had to square it all away on paper, and here is the practical piece for anyone wondering how it runs. Thailand will not let a fellow simply stay on with a tourist stamp. You have to keep hopping out of the country and back, and at my age that gets old in a hurry. But they have got a retirement visa, the long stay, cut for a man in my exact spot. You either set a lump sum into a Thai bank account or you show them the pension coming in, and then they let you plant your feet. It ran me a stack of forms and a heap of patience, and 2 or 3 slow mornings at the immigration hall, and once a year I renew it, and every 90 days I report where I am sleeping. Nat steered me through every turn of it, though, and now I am about as rooted as a foreigner is permitted to get around here. This is my home. On the documents, in the eyes of the government, home. After that, I took a bigger place. 3 bedrooms. Larry, folks said, "Whatever does a widower want with 3 bedrooms?" And I only grinned because I had my reasons. One room is mine. The second I have told May Nuan is hers, any night she cares to use it, because family is what she has become, whether or not she ever signed on for it, and at her age it does not sit well with me, her off alone in that house with the roof. The third stays made up for company, because Colleen did come. That first year she flew the whole way out, primed to despise the place that had run off with her father. and I got to watch this town go to work on my daughter the same slow way it had worked on me. By her third evening, she was perched on the moat wall at sundown next to Menu On, the two of them without one shared word between them, giggling at something private. And Colleen turned to me with her face wet and said, "Dad, I understand. I am so sorry I ever tried to haul you back. I understand now." And then she handed me the line that paid for this whole life. She said, "Your mother would have loved this place." And for once, after all those years, hearing Sharon's name did not cut me. It warmed me, like a break of sun through cloud. It was proof she really was among the living, right where the old woman promised. Greg brought my two grandsons at next Christmas, and watching a pair of Ohio boys, one 14 and one 11, running a basketball game in the lane with the local kids. Not a shared word among the lot of them, only the plain grammar of a bouncing ball and a mess of shrieking. I tell you, the cold stone in my chest had just gone. It runs warm in there now, has for the better part of a decade. So here's what an ordinary day runs like for me now. An ordinary Tuesday. Because the plain everyday ones turn out to be the entire point, and it only took me near 80 years to catch on. I wake at 5:30, no alarm anywhere in the house. I amble to Pa Dong's for that paint-lifting coffee and my Pa Tong Ko, and I sit with Krui Chai, the old school teacher, and the red truck men. And we sort out the world's business, half in English and half in a northern Thai I am picking up slow and mangling as I go. Most mornings after that, I take the moat, while the air is still cool and the stalls are waking, and I know the vendors by name now, and they know me. And I have got a little job of a sort, pitching in at a spot that teaches reading to kids whose folks cannot cover the school fees. It started almost by accident, and it has quietly become the thing I am proudest of in all my years. I had been grumbling to Krui Chai one morning that I felt useless, that a man my age back home is basically a lamp in the corner, a thing you step around. And he looked up from his cup and said, "You speak English." Come, that right there was the entire interview. So now, 3 mornings a week, I lower myself onto a little plastic chair in a room under a tin roof, and these youngsters, a few of them barefoot, a few having walked an hour on foot to get there, they queue up to read aloud to me from taped together donated books. And I help them pass the hard words and tell them they are doing just fine. And one of them, a 7-year-old named Fa, with both front teeth missing, will climb up on the chair beside me and inform the whole room that I am her Ta, which is grandpa around here, and glare down any one of a mind to argue. And I will tell you a true thing. I have buried a wife and raised 2 kids and given 38 years to a factory floor. And I cannot name one piece of all that which filled my chest the way it does when a little girl in a hand-me-down dress makes up her mind, with all of heaven at her back, that some sad old stranger out of Ohio is hers. When the afternoon heat sets in, I nap like a sensible old man, or I go sit by the water. Some weekends Nat drives me up the hill to look in on my elephant, or we head for the cool air of Mekong Pong, and the evenings always hold something: a birthday, a new house, a temple fair, cards on a neighbor's porch, a graduation. There is forever somebody around here marking an occasion, and every single time they want the old American on hand. And every single time I go, in 10 years I have not once taken supper by myself. Let that sit a moment. Back in Ohio, I ate every Last Supper alone, 4 years of them. Over here, across a decade, not a one. And it has nothing to do with me being special. It is that a person eating on his own is simply not a thing they will let happen. Now, I have got to tell you about the day they took me all the way in, because it still knocks me flat that it fell to me. There is a custom up here. When a baby arrives, the family holds a blessing, and the elders gather in a ring and knot little loops of white thread about the infant's wrists to call in the kind spirits and keep the little one from harm. And that job goes to the most respected old souls in the neighborhood. And it is no small ceremonial nicety the way it can be at home. It means the child is yours to watch over now, for good. The youngest niece of Nat's had a little boy, and they came to me, the American who had been in the country hardly a year. I was sure I had misheard, my Thai being what it is, so I pulled Nat off to one side and asked whether they honestly meant it, and he laughed and told me, Loon Larry, they could not be more certain. Now go and find yourself a proper shirt. So there I stood at the ceremony, a big graying Ohioan knotting white thread around the wrist of a Thai newborn, in front of heaven and the whole assembled lane, blessing this fresh little scrap of a life. And the baby, I could not invent this if I tried, they went and nicknamed him Larry, which makes two Larrys in that lane now, one a rooster and one a little boy, and I am fond of the both of them. At the party after, the entire neighborhood poured in, a pig turning since before first light, a karaoke rig that ran a solid 9 hours without a rest, and naturally they put me up to sing. They will forever put you up to sing over here. I gave them my way, dreadful as could be, and they roared like old Blue Eyes himself had climbed up off the tile. I will not pretend to you it is paradise, because I gave you my word this would be the honest telling, and you have earned it. The internet quits on you. The power quits, a blackout down the whole lane, and you learn to keep candles where your hand can find them. It is hot, truly, punishingly hot, the sort of heat a Great Lakes man needs a season or two to come to terms with. And the rains, when they arrive, are no small matter, the streets running like creeks. There is a rooster behind my old place, I am still convinced was in the direct employ of the devil. The bureaucracy can have you tearing at what hair you have got left, and there are folks who will look at a foreigner and see nothing but a walking billfold, and that is a real thing, and you keep a few wits about you for it. This is no fairy tale. It is a real place, with real headaches and real mosquitoes. But here is where I have come to rest at 78 with whatever mileage is left in me, and it is the one thing I most want to put in your hands, if you have stuck with an old man this far. I burned 4 years and a frankly humiliating pile of money circling the globe trying to purchase a single feeling back. The cruises, Naples, the Algarve, Lake Chapala. I was chasing the sense of being alive the way a fool tries to stop a leak by shoveling more cash at it. And none of it took, because I had the target all wrong. I figured I was short a better view, a change of scenery. What I was actually short on, what I suspect a great many of us are short on and will not own up to, was being needed. Being missed on the morning I did not show. Having a soul on this earth decide what I was eating for breakfast. Never again being the last one left in the room. And a thing like that is not for sale on any cruise ship. You come by it one way only, by setting yourself down somewhere that still remembers how to gather a stranger in, and then holding still and letting yourself be gathered. If you are in a silent house this very minute, and the lights have gone dark inside you the way they went dark in me, I am not going to stand here and swear the answer is Thailand. Could be, could not be. But I will swear to this much. The answer is out there somewhere, and it is almost surely not the room you are sitting in. If the place you are has gone quiet on you, you have every right to get up and go hunting for a louder one. You have every right to come back to life. It is no betrayal of the person you buried. I promise you that on all I own. They do not live in your sorrow. Go and live, and there you will meet them again. And listen to me. If any small corner of this has lit a pilot light in you, even the faintest flicker, the way that old Northern City lit one in me somewhere over the ocean, then do yourself a kindness before you argue your way back out of it the way I nearly argued myself. Go and get the truthful version of the facts, not the postcard and not the nightmare. That book I brought up earlier, The Right Move, sets the whole thing down plain, what it runs in which town, the visa, the medical side, the traps, and it is waiting for you in the description. Have a look before you settle anything. An honest little flicker will beat a fairy tale 7 days a week. And that is truly the last of it from me. As for me, I am Larry, 78 years old, a very long way indeed from Youngstown, Ohio, and I am out on a balcony in a 700-year-old walled city named Chiang Mai. The cool sliding down off the mountain, a glass of lime soda sweating onto the table, a little girl named Fa dropping by later to read me a story she penned herself. Mei Nuan is rattling pots in the kitchen and hollering at me over the rooster. My daughter phones, and these days her first words are not, "Are you all right, Dad?" They are. "So what did you do today?" Because she already knows it will be worth the telling. Sharon, if you can hear an old fool out here, I found you. You were exactly where she told me you would be. You were among the living the whole time. And I came within an inch of staying home, within an inch of leaving those lights off for good. So whoever you happen to be, wherever you are sitting tonight, I am begging you, do not. There is one more door at the far end of the hall. Go and rattle the knob. You never do know which one finally gives. Thank you for spending a while with an old man and the story he had to tell. Take good care of yourselves out there, and come and see Thailand sometime. Somebody up here will gather you right in.